The too big to fail banks are at a crossroads at the moment as to whether to get involved with cryptocurrencies or not. The leadership at the central banks has basically, for the most part, said they don't want to get involved. Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan, probably the top bank, has said that Bitcoin is a fraud and that anyone who worked at his company he would fire if he found out they were trading in Bitcoin. Now, Goldman Sachs has been less harsh on it. Goldman Sachs, head of Goldman Sachs has said that Bitcoin has some promise. We're still looking at it. And indeed, they have an ownership interest in a company which has an ownership interest now through an acquisition in Poloniex, which is a cryptocurrency exchange. So they've kind of made a first move into the crypto space. But for the most part, the too big to fail banks, the large money center banks, have not been engaged outwardly in Bitcoin. It's not part of their business model, although you know that there are people at those banks that are actively engaged in cryptocurrency projects. But the outward-facing statements of these banks are they're not involved in Bitcoin. And this reminds me, and I think they will be, this reminds me a lot of the scene in The Godfather where the large mafia families have decided they're not involved with Bitcoin. However, some of the young Turks, they've decided they want to get involved, and one of the mafia families is considering getting involved, but they want the go-ahead of Don Corleone. They want the go-ahead of the largest family. And Don Corleone takes it under consideration. And first he meets with his eldest son, Sonny, and Tom Hagen, who is his consigliere. And he asks them what they think. And of course, the hothead Sonny says there's a lot of money in that white powder. So he's obviously in favor of it. Tom Hagen gives a more reasoned approach. And his approach is one of a practicality. And he says, well, I say yes. There's more money potential in narcotics than anything else we're looking at. Now, if we don't get into it, somebody else will. Maybe one of the 5 families, maybe all of them. Now, with the money they earn, they can buy more police and political power. Then they come after us. Now we have the unions, we have the gambling, and they're the best things to have. But narcotics is a thing of the future. And if we don't get a piece of that action, we risk everything we have. I mean, not now, but on 10 years from now. So Tom Hagen is aware that someone's going to move first. Someone's going to get a piece of this action. Someone's going to become more powerful than the Corleone family if they get involved. And Jamie Dimon must be looking over his shoulder thinking, Goldman Sachs may be getting involved in this cryptocurrency thing. They've got a foot in the water. They've got a toe in the water. So Tom Hagen has arranged a meeting with the Turk, who has been sent on behalf of one of the heads of another family, the Tatalias, to see if the Corleone family would be willing to, in a sense, go in on a joint venture whereby the Tatalias will import the drugs, get them through Sicily, process them, and then sell them on the street. And in exchange, the Corleones will provide some financing and then provide that political protection through the relationships that they have with law enforcement on the street, police officers, and also in the courts. And this way they should be able to take their drug business public, so to speak, amongst the mob, but also know that they have a protected and controlled business that is now sanctioned the same way they get away with their other illegal activities like prostitution and the like. So Don Corleone goes to take the meeting, and he sits down, he listens to the proposal from Sollozzo, who's been sent by the Tatalias, and he gives his answer, and he says, but I must say no to you, and I'll give you my reasons. It's true, I have a lot of friends in politics, but I wouldn't be friendly very long if they knew my business was drugs, instead of gambling, which they rule as a harmless vice. But drugs is a dirty business. And then when Sollozzo starts to interject his protestations, he says, it makes no difference to me what a man does for a living, understand. But your business is a little dangerous. This causes a big stir amongst the mob families because they were expecting Corleone's to go along with this, and now Don Corleone is flat out says it's a dirty business and he's not going to do it. Well, this leads to Sonny, who gets a little excited during the meeting when Sollozzo says to Don Corleone, Sollozzo says to Don Corleone, hey, look, what's the problem? You know, the Tattaglias will guarantee your investment. And Sonny butts says, hey, you're telling me the Tattaglias are going to guarantee our investment? And that indicates to Sollozzo that if Don Corleone wasn't around, that the Corleones would be on board and they would go forward with their plan to sell narcotics. So they try to kill Don Corleone. He survives the assassination attempt, and now there's still no issue. Finally, they manage to get to Sonny. Sonny gets killed, and now the families have to meet because there's been bloodshed back and forth. These types of wars are bad for business. So Don Corleone shows up with the members of the 5 families. And remember, this is all over and all happened over Don Corleone refusing to get involved in the drug business. And they all want to get involved in the drug business, but they've got their moral reasons not to. So Don Corleone shows up at the meeting and he says he was against doing this drug thing. And he said, and why? Because I believe this drug business is going to destroy us in the years to come. I mean, it's not like gambling or liquor, or even women, which is something that most people want nowadays, and is forbidden to them by the Pensionavant of the church. Even the police departments that have helped us in the past with gambling and other things are going to refuse to help us when it comes to narcotics. And I believe that then, and I believe that now. And he immediately gets cut off by Barzini, who says, times have changed. It's not like the old days when we can do anything we want. Then another mobster steps in and says, Salute. He says, somebody comes to them and says, I have powders. If you want to put up 3,000-4,000 investment, we can make 50,000 distributing. So they can't resist. And he's concerned that his guys are involved. His underlings are involved with drugs. They can make this kind of money. But then he says, I want it controlled as a business to keep it respectable. And then Barzini says, well, we all agreed the traffic in drugs will be permitted but controlled. And that is what I think is going to happen. The wild, wild west of Bitcoin, there's so much money that's being made there. But the banksters know that they can't be involved with that. They can't be involved with things that look like money laundering, the things that look like, well, there's some illegal activities going on over here or there. They need to bring it into a controlled and respectable environment. And that's where I think all this regulation is heading. That basically, they're going to try to co-opt, control the cryptocurrency space and get a piece of the action. And they're going to do it with the protection of the legal system, the protection of the regulatory system. And that is what I think is what's coming. The idea that the central banks, mobsters, bank, whatever you want to call them, or the too big to fail banks are going to squash this. I don't think so. I think they want their piece. I think they want to control it. I think they know, as Sonny said, there's a lot of money in that white powder. They know that this is money. They know that it potentially can take them down. But I think they know that if they get involved with it, they got a much better chance of surviving, a much better chance of getting a piece of the action. What do you guys think?